Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and welcome guests. At 64, my mother is fairly health conscious. She takes walks, eats carefully, and does yoga. For her age, she also has to deal with blood pressure and high cholesterol type of conditions. She also gets anxious about stuff like most moms do. But nothing prepared her to deal with what happened 5 weeks ago. At 5 o'clock in the morning on that Tuesday, my mother's desperate call for help suddenly woke me up. My wife and I rushed to her bedroom. She looked pale in her face. Her voice was frail and her palms touched very cold. Her blood pressure was running high. We were still hoping that these signs were temporary. After a while, she tried to get up from the bed and making her way to the bathroom with me and my wife by her side, and suddenly she lost control and she fainted. My good neighbor called 911 for ambulance, and just in time we rushed her to the hospital. At the ER, the doctor said it was due to hyponatremia, which in simple words is a severely low sodium level in the blood. Now, that actually raised more questions than what it answered. How did it become so low all of a sudden? Was it due to an extra pill of medication she took the previous day? Or was it happening all the way along while we were unaware? Well, the next day she did return home, but that was not the end of the story. We had to rush her 2 more times to the hospital in the subsequent days. Once it was due to palpitation of heart, another time it was due to severely high blood pressure. Again, that raised some more questions. Was it due to that anxiety level she has when she returns home compared to all the normal signs she exhibits at the hospital? Or was it due to the frequent change of medications the doctors were attempting? Long story short, she did come home, but it was after 3 stays at the hospital in a span of 8 days. During that time at home and at the hospital with my mom, that offered me a lot of time to reflect and to act. And this is what I think it boiled down to. First of all, you got to carefully understand the medical conditions and the treatment your near ones are going through. Until she was faced with this, I was blissfully unaware of the medications she was taking, when she was taking, and specifically for what she was taking. Right after that episode, I jumped onto internet resources, and that insight enabled me to have meaningful conversations with the doctors and discuss next steps. Secondly, I got to make caring a priority and take the time to reconnect with the near ones during that time of healing. I was trying to juggle with my work, with my family obligations, at the same time attending to my mother. And something had to drop, so I stayed away from work for more than a week. Finally, it is the patience that really comes to rescue, I think. After these three visits in as long as 8 days, I think my mother became a seasoned hospital survivor. And you know when somebody becomes a hospital survivor, when you don't mind to give away same information to the nurses and doctors every day. You don't mind the slow movements in the ER as they happen. You relish the taste of a bland tea that you get in the morning just because it's the only hot drink you have, and the hospital staff starts to know you personally. All this behind, my mother is back in India, closer to her familiar environment, and she's enjoying her long walks in the park again. As for me, I'm back to work and catching up with my Toastmaster assignments again here. But looking back, I think what's most precious in those times is the patience and the ability to reconnect with your near ones. And I did get that time while we were at the hospital and while we were taking our flight back to India, and my mother and I talked a lot about our childhood, my childhood days, and about my father who has passed away since a long time. We would, I think, both cherish that time, and so would my kids, who actually formed a special bond with their grandma. And in fact, my daughter actually would fondly talk to her teacher about how the grandma was doing while this was all happening. So nothing, I think, can prepare somebody to deal with these type of emergencies, but it's important to research your topic of what near ones are going through. It's important to make the caring a priority and to reconnect, and finally to have that patience. Mr. Toastmaster.